to the House.
The question is that this bill be now read a second time, and I call the member for Dawson.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise today to speak on the appropriation bill. On the 9th of May 2023, when the Treasurer delivered his budget speech, it was clear it would do little to address the issues in my electorate of Dawson. When analysing the budget, it's important to listen to not what is said, but what is missing. The Treasurer never mentioned the word infrastructure, nor roads, and could not even muster the word coal. The Treasurer referred to commodities as things. This is unbelievable, given the fact that iron ore, coal, gas and agricultural product exports are the only reason that there is a surplus. The Dawson electorate contributes so much to our nation's wealth through our resources industry, our agricultural industry, our METS and engineering industry. It's estimated that Dawson contributes $1.8 billion to GDP through our resources industry alone. Yes, that's $1.8 billion. So it's extremely disappointing to see the Treasurer bypass our region when it comes to much-needed infrastructure. The very same region who has contributed a significant portion to the budget. As I mentioned before, the Treasurer was delighted to tell Australia of the budget surplus. But that surplus hasn't come from work or solid decisions by the Labor government. No. It was our hard-working coal, gas, iron ore, sugar and beef industries that contributed to the profits in the budget. The Albanese Labor government has once again forgotten regional, rural and remote Australians. And this is the demographic that creates the wealth for Australia, growing our food and fibre. But not only have they ripped billions of dollars out of infrastructure, they've raised our taxes, all while in the middle of a cost of living crisis. As I travel around my electorate, I constantly hear how cost of living is affecting our families. Deputy Speaker, while the Albanese Labor government did try to address cost of living pressures by increasing rent assistance, job seeker allowance, extending the single parenting payment and tripling Medicare rebate, it only reaches a minority of Australians and it falls short of the mark. Rising interest rates are not only putting pressure on mortgage holders, but also on renters. This pressure on homeowners naturally pushes up rents, and it actively pushes people out of accommodation and onto the streets. Rising fuel and grocery costs is also one area of great concern in my electorate. But the government hasn't listened to these concerns, and they've created a truckie tax and a fresh food tax. Adding these extra costs to agriculture, our agricultural industry, just does not make sense. Farmers are already under pressure with labour shortages. This creates uncertainty as to whether the farmers are going to plant crops or not, and how much to plant, for fear of not having enough workers to be able to harvest these crops. And how does this affect the people of Australia? It adds to the total cost of groceries, fruit and vegetables. It adds to their bill at the checkout. There are other numerous taxes announced in this budget. Oil and gas companies will be taxed $2.4 billion over 4 years. Cigarettes will be taxed 5% more over the next 3 years. And the superannuation tax will increase from 15% to 30% for accounts with people over $3 million. The low and middle income tax offset has been scrapped. The safeguard mechanism, which is pretty much a carbon tax 2.0, will hit our resource industry and affect investment and jobs. These increased taxes will affect all of us in some way and will add to the cost of living crisis, which is almost at breaking point for some people. This budget proves that Labor cannot manage their money. And when they can't manage their money, they come after yours. And all this to pay for 10,000 new bureaucrats in Canberra. Deputy Speaker, as I mentioned earlier, I was disappointed to see that infrastructure funding for Dawson was non-existent in the Treasurer's budget. We all know that regions struggle with lack of essential services, and those in the city, they take these as luxuries and they take them for granted, such as mobile phone service and functional roads. Both are needed. These are a necessity to keep our families safe and sound. We've seen water funding infrastructures cut by $872.5 million. Now, investing in water infrastructure is so important. Australia is a dry continent and water security is a real issue. It needs to be addressed and planned for. And any cuts to water infrastructure are just simply outrageous. The already committed to funding, the Mackay Ring Road Stage 2, has been put on hold. And our regional veterans have been turned away again. In Mackay, the RSL and Kitchen Dam Waters Wellness Centre funding was nowhere to be seen. It was good to see 8 other veterans' wellness facilities funded, but extremely disappointing that all 8 facilities are being constructed in Labor-held seats. And the furthest one north is in Brisbane. Deputy Speaker, $17.9 million was also cut from the Veterans Studying Program, and this affected veterans in my electorate. I have a veteran, John, contact my office, who has 6 months to go before he graduates with a law degree. His course was subsidised through the Veterans Studying Program. Unfortunately, he's now left in a situation where he cannot financially afford to complete his degree. As a sufferer from PTSD, this degree was giving John a sense of purpose and hope, something to look forward to, a personal achievement to be proud of. Now John is left devastated and is reeling in disbelief from the actions of this Labor government. Veteran support service and funding is something that should not be meddled with, and I'm truly appalled by this particular funding cut from the budget. I've said it many times and I'll continue to say it. If our servicemen and women are willing to put their bodies on the line and put their lives on the line for our country, then surely they should be provided support when they come back to our shores. Labor's election promise of $586.4 million towards Queensland's highway, the Bruce, is now being delayed until after the next federal election in 2025. Unbelievable. Local projects identified as needed by the coalition government, which should have been started, like the $176 million Gaganga Plains flood upgrade and the $38.4 million Burdekin deviation, these projects are now up in the air and are now under review. The new Horton River Bridge and flood mitigation, part of the Bruce Highway in the Dawson electorate, was delivered under the coalition government and upon completion was opened by the state Labor government. Now, Deputy Speaker, my invite to this opening as the federal member for the region and a member of the coalition that contributed 80% of the funding, well, my invite must have got lost in the mail. Or maybe it just couldn't reach my online inbox due to the mobile black spot funding being cut. Yes, you guessed it, by the Albanese Labor government. And we all know the Labor government is rethinking and reviewing Commonwealth infrastructure projects right across the country in its 90-day review, leaving programs like the Road Safety Black Spot program and Roads to Recovery program up in the air. Effectively, the Albanese Labor government has the residents of Dawson's lives and their safety on hold and under review. In this budget, we've seen no new infrastructure for Dawson, and existing funding has been cut. In fact, this budget has seen $5.5 billion, yes, you heard that right, $5.5 billion cut in infrastructure investment across the country. The Labor government also coldly slashed community grant programs. These programs boost our community organisations, making lives easier for our volunteers and enhancing facilities for our community users. But now, at the hands of the Treasurer, they're all gone. The Stronger Communities Grants program, a coalition initiative which for 8 years has funded upgrades for local community and sporting organisations, is no longer continuing under the Labor government. Funding for our local councils for things like upgrading our local roads, parks and services have been disappointingly cut. Small business. Well, small business completely missed out in this budget. During budget night, the Treasurer was proud to showcase his so-called fiscal responsibility and budget restraint. However, Deputy Speaker, this smelt like a Labor excuse to rip funding out of what's needed where it's needed the most, in the regions. Because in the same breath, Deputy Speaker, the Treasurer had no problem splurging $240 million for a brand new stadium in Tasmania and $2.5 billion for the Gabba redevelopment. Deputy Speaker, funding to improve regional mental health services, closing the gap between metro and regional health, or an urgent plan for housing crisis would be a much better way to spend our taxpayers' dollars. A good budget is all about priorities, but this government has the priorities all wrong. Community pharmacies are set to be $3.5 billion out of pocket with the Albanese Labor government's new changes to the PBS, allowing 60 days dispensing instead of 30. This change will affect rural medicine supplies and result in the reduction of services and opening hours for small, rural and remote pharmacies. And these are our small businesses. 60-day dispensing has been portrayed to free up the healthcare system and time needed to spend with a GP. But this will not be the case. It will only add to the pressure, as pharmacists will no longer be in a position where they can support their patients with free service offerings. The dispensing fee helps cover services like consultation time, home delivery, medication support, and even taking a patient's blood pressure. As each month goes by, under the leadership of the Albanese Labor government, we are all losing confidence. We're seeing reckless policy changes, unnecessary taxes driving up the cost of living, more broken promises than you can poke a stick at, and even more backflipping. We can see that this government has no plan, no vision, and is not using any common sense. We all know that this country needs a strong economy with lower taxes, but the Albanese Labor government seem to have no understanding of what the people need. They rob Peter to pay Paul, or should I say, they rob the regions to prop up the cities. This budget proves that all Australians are always worse off under Labor.